Harry and Meghan. She's been brainwashing him. They have kicked back already, Tom, ahead of publication.
And it's true. I mean, that's the point. It is actually, unfortunately, true at the time. It was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over by Meghan, is desperately in love.
What she allowed it to become, which I think was unforgivable, was a tirade against the racist royal family.
She obviously went into the marriage with other things in mind, namely fame and fortune and a glittering career in California. He wanted half in, half out. He wanted his own cake and eat it. And the royal family said, no, you're either in the royal family or not in the royal family.
Prince Harry could somehow worm his way back into the fold. It seems like Sussex PR is in overdrive lately.
Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain. So I think it's always the same. He wants his cake and eat it.
What happened during King Charles's latest trip to America sent a loud message without a single word needing to be spoken. The king landed in the United States, spending time barely 5 hours away from Harry's California home. Yet there was no phone call, no private meeting, no effort to close the distance between father and son. Think about that for a second, 5 hours. For most families, that is a short flight, a quick drive to reconnect, a chance to sit down face to face and work through years of tension. But for Charles and Harry, even that small stretch of distance may as well have been an ocean. And according to royal biographer Tom Bower, there is a very clear reason why things have reached this cold and distant point. This is not speculation from random online chatter. This is Tom Bower, a man who has spent decades digging into the stories powerful people desperately tried to keep hidden. 26 books, 26 investigations into some of the biggest names in politics, media, business, and public life. Prime ministers, billionaires, media giants, none of them escaped his process.
It's about the problems within the royal family, Harry, Meghan. The trip, just as an overview from you, Charles and Camilla, 4 days in the States with the president who loathes the Prime Minister of Great Britain.
Well, I think it's been a phenomenal success, and all power to the monarchy. Thank goodness we haven't got President Blair or somebody to do that sort of thing. No, it's been terrific. The king has really shown after all these years what an extraordinary good diplomat he is.
I just thought this woman is really doing something quite dreadful to Britain, and Harry has fallen in love with her in a ludicrous way and has gone along as her accomplice.
His method is brutally simple and frighteningly effective. He says it himself: find the victims. He follows the trail left behind by powerful people, not through their polished interviews or carefully managed public appearances, but through the experiences of those who dealt with them directly. The people pushed aside, cut off, dismissed, or left dealing with the fallout. And when he turned that method toward Harry and Meghan, what he uncovered shocked even him. This was never just about a rough adjustment to royal life. It was not simply a clash between modern expectations and ancient tradition. It was not just an awkward departure from palace life that spiraled into years of public bitterness. What Bower says he found was something much more deliberate, a steady, consistent pattern in which one person systematically chipped away at the identity of another, piece by piece, until the man the world once knew barely seemed recognizable anymore. His latest book, Betrayal, published in March 2026, lays out the most detailed account yet of how this happened. Today, we are breaking down all 10 of those revelations, and this is not about broad criticism or recycled headlines.
Here was a woman who was nothing. I mean, born, broken family, the whole thing, an unknown actress, all the rest of it, becomes a global star, which is what she wanted. When she was about 9 or 10, she said to her father, I want to be famous, I want to walk down the red carpet. And she has now done that. And she's calculated that she could be a great success. And by marrying Harry, she did.
Say that she always thought that she'd prefer some sort of career. But when she saw how little money there was in being a royal and how much you had to work for it, in any case, she wanted to head back to California even before she got married.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that.
This is specifically about what Bower alleges was done to Harry, what he says happened behind palace walls, behind closed doors, and in full public view. We begin with what millions of people already noticed long before Bower put pen to paper, because before a single chapter of Betrayal ever hit bookstore shelves, social media had already been buzzing with clips that many viewers felt told the story all by themselves. On the day of Queen Elizabeth's funeral, a TikTok video captioned simply, "Harry refuses to look at Meghan," exploded to 24.9 million views. Another asked, "Has Harry had enough?" and raced past 10.1 million. A third crossed 9.1 million. That is more than 44 million combined views, all centered around the same repeated observation. The same body language, the same tension, the same physical dynamic playing out again and again in public. For years now, online critics have given it a name, the Markle claw, that hand on the arm, that touch pressed against his back, that subtle redirect when he begins engaging with someone else, that slight steering motion that always seems small enough to pass as affection, yet noticeable enough to shift where he stands, where he looks, and where his attention goes.
Meghan giving a staffer a very dirty look during their controversial Australian hospital visit. You'll remember they were in Australia last week. Now, the clip has gone viral, and former staffers who I spoke to have exclusively told me that it revived memories for them of their traumatic employment under her. So in this clip, Meghan's chief staff, who's a very, very competent professional woman called Sarah Fosmo, and previously worked at Gates Foundation, a tough cookie, I am told, is seen coming over to Harry, and she sort of taps him on the shoulder and points up at a balcony like that to indicate to him that there are people on the balcony above who want his attention. And Meghan gives her what I can only describe as a mega death stare. And you can see this clip all over X and YouTube. It gives her an extraordinary kind of death stare, arches her eyebrows at Sarah in very clear reprimand.
Observers say it always seems carefully calibrated, soft enough to avoid obvious criticism, but firm enough to guide his movement. Then came the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver. There, cameras captured what social media quickly labelled the double claw. Meghan held Harry's hand with one hand while gripping his arm with the other at the same time. Viewers noticed Harry visibly leaning away, and the footage spread fast across every platform. Then came another viral moment in April 2026 during the Australia tour. At a children's hospital in Melbourne, Meghan's chief of staff, Sarah Fosmo, lightly tapped Harry on the back to alert him to fans waiting on an upper floor. The reaction that followed sent social media into overdrive. Witnesses say Meghan snapped her head around instantly and delivered what many described as a chilling death stare.
Insiders say that Meghan has long conveyed that Hollywood is her domain. In virtual and in-person meetings with partners, she tends to talk over or recast Prince Harry's thoughts, sometimes while he is mid-sentence, sources say, usually preceded by a touch to the arm or thigh. Because the internet is riddled with clip after clip of Meghan doing exactly what these sources have described. In fact, touching him to either speak over him or cut him off or walk in front of him is practically a trademark move of hers that has been accurately dubbed the claw. Variety wrote that, based on sources, Netflix executives were sick and tired of Meghan and Harry. The mood in the building is, we're done. 3 insiders say Netflix chief Ted Sarandos is fed up with the pair. But then a Netflix spokesperson said it is absolutely inaccurate. Then we learned that apparently Ted Sarandos had said he wouldn't sit with Meghan anymore unless he had a lawyer present. Now, to be fair, Variety makes it clear that this could have been said, in jest. But a Netflix spokesperson said it's absolutely inaccurate.
Before immediately placing both hands on Harry, former Sussex staffers who saw the footage later told the Daily Beast that it triggered memories they had hoped to leave behind. One source reportedly described it this way: "It's classic Meghan, smiling sweetly in public while shooting daggers when she thinks no one's watching." And Tom Bauer says these gestures are not random moments. In Betrayal, he connects this repeated physical behavior to something much deeper. He writes that Meghan increasingly shaped not only Harry's outward movements, but his internal sense of self. And that is where things become much darker. because what people observed publicly may have only been the visible tip of what was happening privately. Now shift from the cameras to closed doors, because in March 2026, during the exact same week Betrayal hit shelves, another bombshell dropped. This one did not come from a British tabloid, not from gossip blogs, not from royal watcher speculation. It came from Variety, Hollywood's most powerful trade publication. The magazine studios, executives, producers, and agents treat like gospel. And what Variety reported was devastating. According to insiders, Meghan frequently interrupted Harry during professional meetings, speaking over him or rewording his points while he was still in the middle of making them. Sources said these interruptions were often preceded by a touch to his arm or thigh, a physical cue, followed by verbal takeover. Insiders claimed Meghan had made it clear behind the scenes that Hollywood was her territory, that she viewed herself as the dominant force in that world. Two separate sources even claimed Netflix chief Ted Sarandos had reportedly begun saying he would not take calls from Meghan unless legal counsel was present. Netflix denied it. The sources stood by their claims. Harry pushed back hard, calling the article categorically false. His legal team labeled it misogynistic, but one detail stood out above everything else. Before publication, lawyers for the Sussexes reportedly sent Variety a legal warning letter attempting to stop the story from running, and Variety published it anyway. That decision spoke volumes. Editors at one of Hollywood's most cautious publications looked at the legal pressure and still moved forward. And that matters, because this is Harry we are talking about, a man who served 2 tours in Afghanistan, a prince who founded the Invictus Games, a veteran who spent years building an independent public identity through service. Yet according to those reports, in critical meetings, his wife was reportedly interrupting him mid-thought and rephrasing his own words back to the room. Tom Bauer says the louder the denials become, the more the pattern reveals itself. He points out that when previous subjects threatened legal action against his books, public interest only intensified. He says the same happened here. And then comes one of the simplest yet most devastating revelations of all. To please Meghan, Bauer writes, Harry changed his personal phone number without informing his own family. No warning, no explanation, no quiet note to his father, no message to William, nothing. The people he had grown up beside for his entire life simply discovered one day that they could no longer reach him. Their calls failed. The line was dead. And just like that, another bridge was gone. By this stage, Bauer says William's earliest fears had fully come true. The once carefree younger brother had changed completely. The fun-loving prince had become consumed by resentment. Small frustrations had hardened into deep hostility. And according to Bauer, Harry increasingly mirrored Meghan's worldview. That transformation came to a breaking point shortly after their 2018 honeymoon. A private meeting was arranged at William and Catherine's apartment inside Kensington Palace. The purpose was reconciliation, one final attempt to repair the growing fracture between the brothers and their wives. But according to Betrayal, that meeting detonated instead. Bauer writes that during the discussion, Meghan sharply told William to take his finger out of her face. Harry, he says, said nothing. He did not intervene, he did not de-escalate. He watched, and in that moment, according to multiple accounts, the brothers' relationship effectively ended. Royal historian Robert Lacey goes even further. He quotes a source close to William who said bluntly, William threw Harry out. That was the moment the shared Kensington Palace household, which had united the d'Hassier brothers for nearly a decade, was dismantled. The Sussex camp later dismissed Betrayal broadly as conspiracy and melodrama, but notably, they challenged no specific allegation in detail. Every individual claim remained standing, and nowhere is that more striking than with Invictus, because Harry built Invictus himself. He launched it in 2014, years before Meghan entered his life. It was his project, his purpose, his independent legacy, a platform honoring wounded veterans and celebrating resilience. It was the one thing truly his. And then came Vancouver 2025. According to Bauer, 2 senior Invictus executives were dismissed after objecting to mounting security and travel costs linked to the couple. A third source described Meghan's presence with cutting clarity. Bling, not rehabilitation. Those 3 words hit hard because they suggested the focus had shifted away from wounded service members and toward image, optics, and spectacle. An event created to honor sacrifice was allegedly becoming overshadowed by celebrity staging. And then came one final detail that perfectly captured the shift in atmosphere. According to Bauer, organizers received instructions on how Meghan was to be addressed. Not casually, not informally, but formally. Organizers were instructed to address Meghan as Mom. The picture coming out of these events becomes even harder to ignore when you look at what was happening right in public view. At one wheelchair basketball match during the Invictus Games, Tom Bauer reports that only 43 paying spectators showed up. 43. For an event meant to spotlight wounded veterans, to honor resilience, sacrifice, and recovery, that number landed like a warning bell. And according to Bauer, the optics became even more troubling from there. Roughly 100 additional people were reportedly brought in by organizers and carefully positioned around Harry and Meghan for photographs, creating the appearance of larger public excitement than what was actually there. Think about that for a second. This was supposed to be about veterans. This was supposed to be about the athletes. This was supposed to be about people who had given so much and fought battles most of us could barely imagine. Yet the headlines, the camera flashes, the media chatter that day centered on something else entirely. It focused on Meghan's outfit, what she wore, how she looked, what designer labels were on display. That became the conversation dominating the coverage. And for Bauer, this represented something far bigger than one misplaced headline. It represented a total shift in focus, a movement away from service and towards spectacle, away from rehabilitation and toward branding, away from wounded warriors and toward celebrity image management. And if that was not concerning enough, Bauer says the same kind of pattern extended into Harry's other charitable work, including one of the causes closest to his heart, Send to Bali, the charity Harry founded in 2006 to support children and young people affected by HIV/AIDS in Lesotho. This was not some side project. This was deeply personal. It was built in memory of Princess Diana and represented one of Harry's earliest and most sincere attempts to create something meaningful outside the shadow of the monarchy. It was part of his identity long before global interviews, streaming deals, or California mansions entered the picture. But according to Bauer's findings, the controversy surrounding Meghan allegedly carried consequences even there. A detailed brand analysis reportedly concluded that sponsor confidence had taken a serious hit. Corporate support began slipping. Longtime partners started quietly stepping back. Companies that once proudly associated themselves with Harry's charitable mission began distancing themselves. Audi withdrew, and perhaps most damaging of all, a major Japanese philanthropist-backed organization reportedly pulled its sponsorship entirely. That single decision removed 23% of Centerbar's annual funding in one brutal blow. 23%. That is not a small reduction. That is the kind of financial impact that shakes an organization to its core. And by March 2025, Harry stepped down completely. Just like that, another pillar of his former life was gone. The charity he built, the mission he nurtured, the cause connected to his mother's memory, gone from his hands. At this stage, we are only halfway through these revelations. 5 truths down, 5 still to come. And if the first half feels difficult to absorb, the second half becomes even heavier. Because this is where the story stops looking like public tension and starts looking like something far deeper. What may have started as influence begins to look like isolation. And what began as isolation starts to resemble something even more unsettling. So stay with this, because to understand where Harry stands now, we have to go back to Tom Bauer's core research and examine what he says was happening behind every major decision. This is where Bauer argues the pattern transforms from difficult relationship dynamics into strategic redirection. According to his reporting, Meghan became increasingly dissatisfied with Harry's position inside the royal structure, not because he lacked privilege, not because he lacked influence, but because his future was permanently limited by hierarchy. He was never going to be king, and according to Bauer, that mattered enormously. He says resentment allegedly grew around the reality that she would never become queen, that no matter how much visibility, influence, or media attention they generated, the ultimate center of royal power would always belong elsewhere. And from that dissatisfaction, Bauer says, came the push towards separation. Encouraged by Meghan, Harry allegedly began rejecting palace guidance. He pulled away from the systems that had shaped him. He distanced himself from longtime advisors. He became increasingly resistant to management from royal staff. And those closest to him saw the danger early. William warned him before the engagement that the relationship was moving too fast. That caution was reportedly brushed aside, and after that, the walls started closing in, one step at a time. The friends disappeared, the phone number changed, the joint household fractured, the connection with Charles grew colder, the relationship with William shattered. Bauer does not describe this as temporary distance. He uses stronger language. He writes that by the time the process was complete, Harry had become permanently alienated from William and Catherine. Permanent. That word matters. It speaks to damage that may no longer be easily repaired. And even now, signs of that fracture remain painfully visible. An insider recently said, "It's very difficult, if not obstructive, that Harry finds himself in this position while desperately trying to rebuild bridges with his family." And then came the moment that made everything hit harder. King Charles visited America this week. He was just 5 hours from Montecito, 5 hours from his son. Yet Harry was nowhere on the schedule. No meeting, no invitation, no reunion. Silence. That silence speaks louder than any official statement ever could. Then there is Spare, the book that exploded across the world. 1.4 million copies sold on day one, certified by Guinness World Records as the fastest-selling non-fiction book ever released. On the surface, it looked like Harry finally telling his truth. But Bauer sees something very different. He argues Spare was never really Harry's story. He says it was the story Meghan needed the world to hear. Every major grievance mapped perfectly onto the Sussex narrative. Palace coldness, palace cruelty, institutional failure. The suggestion that departure was not strategic, but unavoidable, necessary, morally justified. It was a narrative framework that transformed exit into righteousness. And Bauer keeps returning to one contradiction that he believes reveals everything. Harry writes in Spare that he never heard Meghan speak badly about anyone, not once. Yet in the same book, he describes staff members crying at their desks. He describes escalating internal conflict. He describes repeated confrontations with William, a household descending into chaos. How can both versions coexist? How can there be no harshness while the environment around them was reportedly collapsing? Bauer's answer is direct. One of those realities was shaped. When researching revenge, Bauer told British television, "She's a person who controls the narrative. She thought she could cut me off. She failed." He said this was the hardest research project of his career, not because evidence was missing, but because access to sources had allegedly been systematically blocked. And that brings us to what may be the most emotionally raw revelation of all. Harry wants to go home. He has said publicly that he cannot imagine bringing his wife and children back to the United Kingdom without proper security. That issue has consumed years of legal battles. He lost at the High Court in May 2025. He lost again on appeal, and all of it centered around his attempt to secure police protection when returning to his own country. The last full formal security assessment for the Sussexes was conducted in 2019. That was years ago. Since then, everything has changed. And yet the legal deadlock continues. Meanwhile, time keeps moving. His father is battling cancer. His relationship with William remains frozen. His children have barely spent meaningful time with their grandfather. And according to insiders, arguments between Harry and Meghan over returning to Britain have become deeply emotional. Some sources describe these disagreements as intense enough to threaten their future direction as a family. Harry reportedly wants Archie and Lilibet to know the country he came from, to understand his roots, to see where his story began. But insiders say Meghan remains strongly resistant, associating Britain with some of the most painful periods of her life. She has not returned since Queen Elizabeth's funeral in September 2022, nearly 4 years. That absence tells its own story. Tom Bower recently told the Daily Express that their actions, combined with what he described as a lack of originality and overpowering self-importance, have only made it more urgent for them to seek validation through a royal return. But he believes that path is closed. And if he is right, then Harry faces a future defined by a brutal split between what he wants and what he can realistically reclaim. One wants to return, the other does not. That tension changes everything, and perhaps nowhere is the cost clearer than in what Bower says happened to Harry himself. In Revenge, Bower writes with brutal clarity that Harry split from old friends to please Meghan. He changed his number, he cut ties, he withdrew, and over time, his character changed. The once easygoing prince became increasingly consumed by grievance. The warmth faded, the suspicion deepened, the openness narrowed into defensiveness. The loyalty that once anchored him transformed into ammunition aimed back at the institutions that raised him. Bower says his character mirrored Meghan's. That line lingers because it suggests not a gradual drift, but reconstruction, a reshaping of perspective so complete that former relationships became impossible to maintain. And once someone fully accepts that new framing, the old world becomes unreachable. You no longer need old friends who remember who you were. You no longer welcome family members who challenge the new narrative. You only need the person who keeps confirming it. And now, we arrive at Bower's most devastating conclusion, his final verdict. In Betrayal, he writes that Meghan appears increasingly separate from Harry, except when joint appearances benefit her publicity, that when the spotlight serves her image, they appear together. When it does not, they move apart. Bower has even said publicly that while Harry may be attempting distance, Meghan still needs him, because without Harry there is no royal connection. Without the title, there is no Duchess brand. Without the prince who sacrificed everything to stand beside her, there is no global story to market. And Harry, Bower paints a bleak picture, a man isolated from Britain, a charitable legacy diminished, a future uncertain, a desperation visible to those paying attention. The Spotify deal collapsed. $20 million gone. The Netflix agreement expired in September 2025 after multiple projects reportedly failed to sustain major audience momentum. Their PR agency exited. Staff departures climbed to 25. And this week, his own father was in America and did not call. Then came one final detail that struck many observers hard. Sources claim Harry and Meghan did not watch King Charles's address to Congress. Not live, not later, not at all. An insider reportedly said, "Once upon a time, that would have been unthinkable." And maybe that says everything. The prince who once had the full machinery of monarchy behind him, the family, the purpose, the duty, the history, the belonging. He walked away from all of it. And Tom Bower has now spent 2 books, years of investigation, and thousands of pages documenting what he believes Harry traded it for. That is Bower's case. 10 truths, fully documented, publicly argued, broadly denied, but never specifically dismantled point by point. Now, it is your turn. Which revelation hit hardest for you? The Invictus transformation, the family fracture, the isolation, the Netflix collapse? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let everybody know what stood out most. And if you want more deep breakdowns like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one, because this story is still unfolding and there is a lot more to uncover.